Welcome you to Porch Talk. This is your host, Alan, and this is a Skype call up to Nashville, and I have Alicia Blue with me. Alicia, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. Off work for the day, and I get to do my passion. I get to talk to musicians.
Nice. Where are you?
So, so tell me a little bit about yourself. So, were you born and raised in Los Angeles?
I was born about an hour east of LA, and college, my early college years is when I moved to the big city of LA and went to school in the Valley. And then it was towards my last year of college that I realized I wanted to be a songwriter.
Yeah. So, where do you think that came from?
Um, Well, an incredibly deep, obsessive love for artists like Bob Dylan and Joan Baez since I was younger. But I never thought I could do that. And then I met this soul singer that I actually became his caretaker in my last year of college, and was like, "Oh, could you teach me how to sing?" And that turned into um, using my voice. For my poems and creating, 3 minutes of a song. Yeah.
Right on. So, I have here that you originally wanted to be like you were into jazz and you were aspiring to be a soul singer, and your mentor that would have been Malcolm Clark Hayes Jr., right?
Yeah. So
And he
that's
kind of changed the trajectory for you.
yeah, exactly. So I wanted to be a poet, and then I met Malcolm, who was a soul singer, and I just probably for like 2 years I just listened to music with him and learned how to listen to music. And I don't think, like, I make folk music and I write lyrics, and no music's better than another, but for me soul music and blues and jazz are just like probably the most precious thing I feel like this country is sort of birthed. And so that was kind of like my heart at first, but words were my heart before kind of, that became it. So it was like words, then music, and music in the form of jazz and blues. And then, okay, cool. So I'm a poet, so I'll make folk music. Yeah.
I wanted to back up for just a second. As far as Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, Leonard Cohen, how did you find those artists? Was like mom and dad spinning records when you were young, or how did that go down?
Not at all. uh, my, I actually would say probably funny enough, soul. My father, so I'm Mexican. My father's from Mexico. My father was listening to Sam Cooke to learn English when he was on the plane to fly to the US to marry my mother. Um, and he also was obsessed with Linda Ronstadt, which is again is like more soul music, and her mariachi records, which were in Spanish. So I grew up with that. But when I was a young teenager, I had a boyfriend whose father was obsessed with Bob Dylan. And um, I think just before we got close, I had an uncle here, or excuse me, in LA, that played The Hurricane by Bob Dylan. And that kind of, I was like 13, and I remember like reaching up. I couldn't even like reach the CD player. Uh, to keep repeating that track from Desire. I think it's track one, and that was pretty obsessive for me. So yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the authors, Jack Corich and Joan Didion. Uh, is that where writing poetry and getting into that came from?
Um, Actually, no. I mean, yes and no. So my parents got divorced when I was like 12, and I don't even think I knew what I was doing, but I was writing little poems. I had no um there was no one I wanted to be like. I didn't read poetry. I went to a Catholic school, and there was not like some some poetry class or anything like that. And I don't remember studying poetry in grade school. And so I started kind of writing poems, I guess, to get through that. I don't think I really knew I was. And I think I wrote them on like little pieces of paper, and maybe my mom saved them. And then in 6th grade, my teacher gave an assignment to like respond about like this painting of this like really forlorn woman with like a child, and she was clearly homeless, and it was like, let's write a paragraph on like what this woman's feeling. And for some reason, like, I wrote a bunch of stanzas that kept starting with like I see, so it was like became a poem. So it was just, I have no idea why I did that, and the teacher didn't think I wrote that, and like had to talk with my mom, which was funny. So I don't really know, and I wasn't rewarded for being like that. I wasn't praised. But yeah, it just kind of came pretty naturally. And then in high school, my last year of high school, I had an English teacher who loved art and poetry, and who kind of saw something in me, and that's where I was like, okay, as a professional, I can embody this.
Right on. And so, would guitar be your first instrument?
Yeah.
And so, did that start with Nong? Is he the one who taught you?
Nong, yeah, Nong is a woman that I met, really, I would say on the east side of Hollywood. And Nong is a Thai woman that played all these American covers at these Thai restaurants. Nong was from Thailand, and I, in my time with Malcolm, had gone to dinner, and she was playing at this restaurant, and it was like James Taylor and Joni Mitchell and Carole King and all these covers, and she was playing pretty impeccably and singing just like an angel, really. And I approached her, asked her if she could, because the finger picking was super like James Taylor style, and I approached her and asked her if she could lend some advice. Does she give lessons? And she actually couldn't speak English really at all. So that was stunning because she was singing in perfect English. And so, yeah, she fucking became like one of my best friends for that period of time, took me to buy my first guitar, taught me how to finger pick, and that's Nong, yeah.
All right, and so a quote that I have from Malcolm, and I thought it was very interesting, and it's where your name comes from, right? Your artist name is, "What makes you so sad?" Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah, I kind of like just calling back to when I told you I met him and was like, learning from him. I was like, yeah, can you teach me how to sing? And he was like, you do not want to learn how to sing. It's the hardest business in this world to get into, music. You don't, trust me, you don't. I was like, no, please, like, because Malcolm had toured with Little Richard, and Jimi Hendrix was his band leader, and like, produced by Barry White. Like, I felt like I was sitting with the horse's mouth. So I was like, well, if I'm going to learn to sing, it's going to be from this somebody, right? Like, that's where my head was at. And he's like, okay, well, go home and record yourself singing something and let me hear it. So the first thing I played him, he just looked up and was like, what makes you so sad? And I was like, fuck, I didn't even think I was sad. Like, do I sound sad? And so, yeah, that's kind of where that came from. Him here.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so, just as far as your songwriting process, when I write songs, it typically starts with poetry as well, and then I'll come back behind it and add music. Is that typically how your process works?
Yeah, it's super similar unless I'm co-writing. I'll have an idea and I'll walk into a room, and usually they'll have, some flavors of ideas, and we'll find the one that fits the most. But when it comes to my own stuff, if I'm writing all by myself, I'll 1000% the lyric leads, the tone of the music, and the music will follow. So I feel like I rarely meet people like you, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Everyone, yeah.
and each person has their own way, and I do ride arounds with friends, like we're, let's just say they give you the word cigarette, you
Mm,
gotta now you gotta use the word cigarette in the song somewhere,
right,
and those are fun exercises, especially if you get like a difficult word to where how in the world am I going to use that, you know?
right, right.
Uh,
Where are you located, by the way?
I'm from a small town in Alabama called Kennedy, but
Cool.
right now I'm in Starkville, Mississippi.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a lot of fun, like just moving from here to there, because there are quite a few musicians here, and it's been great to get to know the art scene here. There's a lot of great artists. There's a lot of great poets. And Mississippi is just so rich. You mentioned Sam Cooke earlier. I mean, just all these
Yeah.
great blues musicians, even Elvis Presley, and um, the
Oh,
list
yeah.
goes on.
Absolutely.
Uh, so tell me a little bit about when you started staking your claim. Did you start it in LA, like playing shows and getting out?
Yeah, 1,000%. LA, I love LA. I'm not there now for a lot of reasons. But LA has a really unique and, how do I say, not adorable, because that's a terrible word for it, but just really endearing scene on the east side. Um, and I started, open mics on the east side of LA, um, not that long ago, really. And I feel like for the music I was doing, singer songwriter and folk, the scene there is super indie rock and, of course, a giant pop scene. So it was really cool to kind of, I feel like I was at the first blossomings of what's now becoming more of a folk and singer songwriter and Americana scene there. Um, I fucking love it. Like, just hearing from friends, even back home, like it just seems like it's growing larger and larger. And I never had that experience of leaving my hometown for college or anything like that. I feel like a lot of kids have that, and they go to another state or another city. Um, but so me coming to Nashville a little bit later in my life, not right for college, is kind of like my little departure of my home, right? Like from LA. And I feel like it's super overdue. And so yeah, it just kind of and I'm here in Nashville, which is super fertile and just so fucking nurturing, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always hear it like East Coast, West Coast. It's just so different. It's so diverse, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a lot going on as far as when you look back on LA life now that you're in Nashville, and I bet that really helped like process and helps your growth as far as you mentioned you needed to leave. So I'm sure like that was looking back now that probably draws out a lot of emotions and feelings and kind of helps the process.
Yeah, like 1,000%.
Yeah. So tell me about how did you get hooked up with Mr. Lincoln of Cage the Elephant?
I got my first manager in 2020, and he was like, you need to really like cut your teeth with co-writing. You need to like learn how to write, and where do you do that? You do that in Nashville. So this is all happening in LA, like these conversations. And so he sent my work to, I think it was Warner Chapel, and they blasted out to like their people. And Lincoln was just one of the people that sort of bit for um, writing with me. And so I, throughout the last 2 years, just kept taking these little trips in my little Honda, driving to Nashville from LA with my best friend and staying for a few weeks on end and writing. And Lincoln, every time we wrote, and we'd write multiple times, and everything we wrote was just fucking cool and good and felt sort of undeniable. And there was kind of this wordlessness between us in the collaboration. We didn't have to say much to each other. I think he called me before we met and was like, I don't fuck with lyrics, so I need to make sure you can hold that down. I was like, well, thank God, because I can't have anyone fuck with my lyrics. So it was kind of like, I make these cool, musical beds and progressions. You gotta do your thing. And I was like, great, because I do this thing where I top line and I just need some holding for that. It was
Yeah.
pretty glorious, yeah.
So the first EP, Magma, did you cut that while you were in LA?
Yeah, that was one of the first songs I wrote with an incredible producer, Eduardo Rivera, and I was pretty timid. I had not a lot of experience, and had these little batches of songs, and we filtered through them, and Eddie just let me be me. Added, it's almost like makeup that you can't tell is there. That's what Eddie did to those songs, and yeah, it was pretty magical for the first thing I ever did.
Is it something now that you're working on inner child work? Is looking back on Magma, is that still a work you're damn proud of?
Oh yeah, that song, I I'm so proud of it. Um, you know, I feel like it's one of those songs in a lifetime. When the moment you wrote it that it was special.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, that happens not very often, and it feels different because there's other songs that will have their own path and be big and stuff, but um, I'd never co-written with anyone when I wrote Mac. It was just all on my own on my little guitar. I didn't understand, music theory at that point. I was such a fresh baby. In that world. So it was really cool to have someone like Eddie on the other side of me go, oh, this is great. And then do what he did to it, which was just some incredible percussion. And I forget what the string instrument that he added. It wasn't a ukulele, but I think it's a South American instrument. It's leaving my brain right now. Just like knew to add that where he added it and then created this like chimey, dreamy version of my song. Yeah.
Yeah. And moving up to now with Saline Waters and Dog Days in LA, I've really thoroughly enjoyed those songs. Lyrics are solid, but on top of that, like I guess working with Lincoln Parrish, like I hear some tones from bands I've been into for a decade, and I
Oh,
can
cool.
or even like with your songwriting style, like I'm very into folk music, so it's like it's not just a cool music progression. It's also got weight when it comes to the words, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes me fucking smile because I feel like that is the best of Lincoln and the best of me, right? Like I get to, and that's what I loved about working with him is he brought this sort of like bed and holding like underbelly to what I was laying on top, which for me it's all about what I'm saying and how I say it. But it's funny, the fabric of what I was saying has some grit and darkness in it, and I feel like what Lincoln is and his influences brought these guitar riffs or these progressions that sound like, especially Saline Waters, right? Like
Oh
that's
yeah.
like sounds like so many things that I feel like rock bands from 80s, 90s, thousands, like all in one. And I feel like I remember when he hit me with that idea, I fell in love with it. But once it was done, I was like, whoa, this is not a folk song, right? Like I was like tripped out. And he's like, dude, this is good. And I was like, okay, like, all right, like
Yeah.
I know it's good. It's just what am I supposed to do? I'm a folk singer. How's this supposed to go? And then I brought it to my band in LA and like Jason Goldstein, who's a trusted confidant, was like of everything I brought him, he was like, this is special. And I was like, okay, like and then on the release, it actually seemed that one in Dog Days in LA, but Sailing Waters seems to be everyone's favorite, which is like not shocking to me, but like makes me smile because I actually had those lyrics like completely written with no music. And it was cool when Lincoln presented the idea to like just kind of slap those on there that way because it became what it became. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a job well done. Something that stood out when I was just reading through the bio, and it's something that I hear a lot, especially from a female's perspective, is the "Don't tell me to smile." Is that something that happened a whole lot while you were in LA and even in Nashville? Or
Yeah, I think women, in business or even as the song says, walking down the street, there's always this, especially when you're in front of a camera too, there's always this like, smile, sweetheart, smile. And I think even as a child, I grew up, I was a dancer when I was a little girl, and oh, you got to smile when you're on stage. You got to smile. And I remember one time uh, doing a solo ballet performance, and I remember my dance teacher telling me to smile, and it was like this really deep, somber song, and I remember feeling an intensity, and it wasn't smiling, it was serious and somber. And I remember feeling the music, and it was like, why would I smile like on this moment, right? Like it's not an unhappy moment, right? And so
yeah,
fast forwarding that, even like I feel like on the other extreme, like sometimes you're not happy and even in your personal relationships. And so if the person on the other side of you can't really give you the space to just like work that out, might take 5 minutes, might take 5 hours. But I think we need to like cut each other some slack, to be honest, because if we're not doing that, we're not gonna move through whatever is not feeling good.
yeah. I mean, I think about that right now with just where we are, maybe as a nation, is especially down here in the South. You probably picked up on it quite a bit. Is how you doing, and it's almost automatically doing good.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, let me ask you again and tell me the truth.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. So I mean, and I think like most people are being polite, and then sometimes you'll have someone who's honest. Is like, I'm not okay. I was like, well, this is going to take a little bit longer than a hey, how you doing?
Mm,
So let's take a little time to
there's-
see what's going on.
that's right. And so you gotta pause and hold space for that. And I think I love that. This is gonna take a little bit longer. I love that.
Yeah, and I mean, we try to. I mean, I try to be intentional with people. Is like I wouldn't ask you anything that I didn't want the honest answer to, even if you're just trying to be polite or
Yeah.
save save time because we're just passing by or whatever else, right? But I
Yeah.
believe it's something important. And another thing, I think it's completely natural to be depressed. Life is hard, you know.
Yeah.
It's not rainbows and butterflies, and I think being honest about it, it helps, especially with a medium is in poetry or songwriting, to where because you're being honest in your work, that helps people connect with you.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. I love what you're saying. And I feel like um it's unfair. It's like nobody likes fake people, right? Like no one likes someone who feels scummy and fake and like, hi, and how you doing? Like, so we can't have that double standard where and don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about acting like an asshole to everyone because you're in a bad mood either, right? Like, but I
Yeah, they
think we
don't
have,
deserve that.
yeah, like no, right, like don't put your shit on other people. But I think like if let's not have the double standard where it's like, okay, I don't like fake people. We teach our kids to be honest. So when they're honest, we need to respect that. And that's it. And it can be a moment, right? Like even if you're talking to the cashier, it's like, how are you doing? God, I'm tired. You know what? I can imagine you're tired. You've probably been working your ass off. And then there can be a like, thanks, man. Move on, right? Like just a moment, right? Like of honoring that. Yeah. You there?
Kind of
Hello.
lagging a little bit.
You
All right.
good now?
I missed the yeah, I missed the last part of what you were saying. It lagged out on me. Last thing I heard was, "I bet you are tired."
Oh yeah, I was just talking about it can just be a moment, right, between you and the person on the other side, whether it's in public or private. Like, it doesn't have to be a long, drawn out thing. Just
Yeah,
honoring that with honesty and respect. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So, what are some of the plans for the remainder of 2022, if you can call it? You gonna try to put a tour together for Inner Child Works, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I think we're working on some LA and Nashville shows, and then I'll be starting the touring the record with a small tour opening for the districts at the end of fall. So end of September. Yeah, so in fall. Let me know when you're back.
Right on. Okay. So, I've got three more questions. Can you hear me okay? Is it lagging on my end?
You're good.
Okay. Three questions to walk it out the door. Uh, Number one is, where can people find your music?
Just at Alicia Blue Music, one word, on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok or Facebook. And then on Spotify, it's just Alicia Blue, like the color ALICIA, or aliciablue.com for any extra stuff.
Right on. Uh, Number two, if you could play any venue, where would it be?
Um, like all time or like where I'm at right now?
Let's let's do both. All time
Okay,
first.
cool. So all time, I guess. I think if I was, mm, trying to think of something far out. Right now, I'm just like, my favorite venue when I was a teenager in LA was the Greek. So that's kind of like the hometown dream.
Hmm.
Um, and then I think like small time, like smaller, um, I've seen some heroes at the Wiltern, which is another smaller theater in LA. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I love the Ryman, up there where you're at. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. All
Mm.
right. Last question is, what was your favorite part of this interview?
Oh, good question. I loved when you were talking about Don't Tell Me to Smile, and I love what you had to say about um, it sounded like a song actually. You said um, ask something about like ask me how you're doing, and okay, now here's the real answer. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my favorite part of this.
Well, absolutely. Well, you are welcome.
Thanks, man.